everyone. I'm just going to give a little introduction as to what these meetings are meant to be. These are going to be monthly scheduled open forum meetings. They are not always going to have an agenda. If they do, we will attach it to the event when creating them in the future. Today was, I think, fairly self-evident with the documents and the responses and all of the changes that have been made is what we're mostly going to be reviewing today. But as an overview, please expect these to be scheduled out regularly in the future. They will be an open forum time for the community to pop in, ask questions. If you know somebody that wants to ask a question that cannot be here, please take and be a liaison for those questions and bring them to us. You're more than welcome to type in chat. We'll have people open looking at that as well as we move through these, and hopefully it will make for a more open discussion forum between the community and us moving forward. So thank you all for joining the first of these, and I'm going to let Dio take over. He's got our agenda for today. He'll be our main facilitator, and happy discussing. I don't know what to say at this point.
Happy meeting. Yeah, so happy meeting. Before we get started, I'll just reiterate the short list of meeting rules that we have for the Q&A. We won't be answering questions about tournament ban appeals or badge support appeals during these meetings. This is not really the place for that. You should be just contacting the tournament's email for those kinds of things. And similarly, we're not going to answer questions regarding tournament reports because if you are the one submitting a report, we want to be able to keep your user privacy. And B, if you're not the one submitting a report, then either you are one of the reported parties or you are asking for information that should be kept private. Basically, any question that would reveal private or sensitive user information might be denied an answer, and we'll explain why we're denying that answer as best we can. So to start things off, we're going to do a quick 5-minute rundown of what the changes we have announced are and what our progress is on them. So this is going to move somewhat quickly, and we'll get through this as quick as we can, and then open up to just normal Q&A, which is going to be kind of the mantra for these meetings going forward. First off, My Angel Kita has their badge back. That's already on the profile, has been for a week. As you've all probably seen, Perennial is getting tri-badged again, and all tournaments announcements that happen during that time are getting badged retroactively, whether that's DMCA or otherwise. These tournaments will also be undergoing normal tournament review process before badges are applied, just like every other tournament that gets a badge. Participation assessment changes are passed and on the wiki. They will only be used if literally 0 maps are played by a player on a winning team of a tournament. Generally, we're going to be giving badge removals more weight. Along with that, we are also experimenting with using hosting bans in place of debadging tournaments in cases where competitive integrity is still upheld throughout the tournament and where the tournament isn't otherwise just completely gone format-wise or otherwise. If there are irreparable issues that just cannot be fixed for the tournament, we will still consider debadging. But in cases where there are not those kinds of irreparable issues, we'll experiment with using hosting bans. We are going to have a higher transparency with vote calls. This is going to include a summary of the vote, whether or not we use strict participation, which says at least 75% of tournament committee has to vote for the vote to be valid, and the number of votes for each outcome. This is likely going to be on a forum thread in the tournaments and contests forum. Not sure if that's going to be in the tournament sub forum or just in the tournaments contests forum. This is not going to include names to the votes or comments made with votes. So very similar to content review public results on the BN site. And it's also, for now, not going to show vote calls for tournament bans because we don't want to show targeted votes against specific users. Very obviously, by the fact that you are here right now, public meetings and Q&A sessions are now a thing, which is great. Those are monthly, as Chillier said. We had a couple of clarifications with the policy for leniency for minor operational issues that don't impact competitive integrity. This has been status quo for a while, but we just wanted to reiterate that when there are minor operational issues, we don't just straight up debadge tournaments. We pass through tournaments with minor operational issues pretty much. Actually, I think every single tournament we pass through has some kind of minor operational issue that is caught in tournament review. So that, yeah, if we debadged for every single one of those, there would be no badge tournaments. So just clarifying that. Badge submissions may now happen at any point, but we're still really encouraging people to get them in as soon as possible, so that your players aren't waiting for months on end for your badge submissions. There was an issue that was raised, or a concern that was raised with this, about the length of time regarding badge submissions and BWS, but we're going to see how this works for now, and if we need to make changes in the future based on what's happening with BWS and rank restricted tournaments, we will when that comes. Badge quality and tri-badge quality checklists are underway. We do have a public version of that is for now previewable. I want to stress that this version is not final, so do not use this if you plan on trying to badge a tournament. That is in the voice chat VC. Can we pin any docs here? That's a great question. I don't know. Can we? No.
I cannot pin myself.
Well, it is in the chat. That is not final yet. We are still reviewing that, trying to get as much of that done as quickly as possible, because I know there's a lot of people who find the wiki kind of overbearing. It does need, I think, a refactoring at this point. And for a tri-badge checklist specifically, that just really hasn't existed. It's been somewhat vague. So we're trying to make it a little bit more clear what we want to see when looking at those kinds of tournaments. We're also working on a voting situation table for situations we've voted on in the past to allow hosts to make decisions more confidently without consulting tournament committee, because they know, exactly what we've looked at before and the kinds of situations that we have voted on before. That is not previewable right now, unfortunately, so we'll get that out once we're able to. The tournament committee role is now pingable in the OSU dev server, which is great. If you have a really urgent request, like, hey, somebody in my tournament is restricted and it's grand finals weekend, what do I do? That's a great time to ping tournament committee. If you have a question about content usage guidelines, that's probably not a great time to use the ping. So just use it when it's a real emergency, and that's exactly what it's there for. Last couple of changes. Official communications might sound a little less official going forward. We're focusing less on writing them to match support tickets and more on just getting emails out and written as soon as possible and making sure that the content in them is clear. That's been a problem with our communications in the past, so we're just focusing on making the content as clear as possible and getting them written and sent out as quickly as possible. And the last major change, applications via the Google form are now indefinitely open. So if you ever want to apply, that same application from the news post is open all the time. Feel free to apply whenever. Speaking of applications, we should have all of the applications from the first round when we first opened that Google form processed and selected in about 3 weeks. So you should expect to hear back in about 3 weeks. And we encourage still anyone who's interested to apply to be on the team, even if you haven't applied already. Again, that application is open indefinitely. We'll definitely be focusing on getting through the first round of applications, the first round of applicants, before we admit anyone else, but it is fully open. And with that, we are, I think, pretty much good to go for Q&A. So anyone who has questions for anyone on tournament committee or just of tournament committee in general, feel free to raise your hand and we will get you onto the stage for your Q&A session.
So I know that was a lot of info, so if you have any questions on like what we just talked about, that's also fine.
Okay, question from Megamic in the VC chat. Is there an estimated... Very many questions. Also several parts to some of these questions. Is there an estimated date for when the DMCA-related unbadges will be applied on profiles? And can I confirm that this applies to all of the following tournaments? Idols, OMCT6, Kuruwimi Cup, RDub, and AIM Cup 4. Yes, it applies to all of those tournaments. And the second part, as for when they will be applied, whenever reviews are done for those tournaments, because they were debadged following the changes to content usage guidelines and to DMCA guidelines, they did not go through initial tournament review. So those will have to go through tournament review once again before the badge gets applied. We're assigning those reviews out. Once the reviews are done, they should see a badge on players' profiles. There may be things to fix, right? Minor operational issues to fix that we catch in the review stage that weren't caught before because we didn't do tournament review for them. So once that is finished with, then those will have the badges on the profiles. Are there current investigations into the Peruvian multi-account mafia situation to take actions like tournament bans to certain individuals? I will be honest, I have had enough of Google Docs for a week, so I did not read that yesterday when it came out. If somebody else who has read the doc wants to answer that question, that would be great.
I would like to add that in terms of tournament committee scope, that just doesn't fall under our jurisdiction until support makes a determination that any of this is valid or that it holds weight. It's just a document until then, and for a lot of things among that, we need to wait for their direction and research rather on into the validity of that entire thing. So it's too recent. There hasn't been enough discussion on it.
Has there been any warning towards any TCOM members internally? Chillier, I guess you want to answer that one?
Could you elaborate on?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little unclear on exactly what you mean by that. So we'll, I guess, come back to that.
Yeah, we can move on, and then when you're elaborating, we'll.
Yeah.
On
their conduct brought up the last few drama and stuff. So the reason, no, there has not been internal warnings. I'll be clear, Ephemeral and Peppy have both been active in tournament committee channel, giving their opinions on things and advising what we are doing with a lot of this stuff. Neither of them have brought that up. So there has been internal oversight over tournament committee, especially recently. And part of the reason why there has not been any warnings issued is because those were addressed at the time that they happened already internally by people who are higher powers than tournament committee. So there's nothing new to address there, and that's why there's been no recent warnings for anything. According to the announcement last week, you guys are now. I am reading through the other questions, by the way, as we go through this. I'm just trying to get through all the questions first. According to the announcement last week, you guys are now going to have hosting bans instead of unbadging tournaments. A few questions for this. There was a mention that if competitive integrity is irreconcilably compromised, then there will still be an unbadge to a tournament. What counts as such? Previous examples have had tournaments unbadged due to too many forfeits, leaving the winner only playing 2 matches, for example. Does that still constitute as an irreconcilably compromised competitive integrity? That's not something anyone could have controlled and does not necessarily mean the tournament is no longer competitive. So first off on that, I'll clear up what I think is a pretty common misconception. We have never unbadged a tournament specifically for lots of FFs. There have been other extenuating circumstances every single time that has been mentioned. So that is not something that we have ever denied a tournament for specifically, is lots of FFs. That just doesn't happen. It is an indicator that we might want to look at a tournament, because if there's tons and tons of FFs, it means players generally probably didn't want to play a lot of the tournament. I'm looking forward to having my own tournament very closely reviewed because of that very soon. But that is not something that we have ever actually debadged a tournament for, is just straight up lots of FFs. That hasn't happened. The cases where competitive integrity is compromised are things like you make a major rule change and you do not properly announce it to players, and some of them see the rule change and some of them don't, and it impacts the outcome of matches. Or you replace a map in the pool on Wednesday after releasing on Sunday and don't ping the players about it, and only some of them see it. Those are a couple of examples as to when a host error would make it so that the bracket is probably not salvageable and you might have to replay it. Or it would just not be able to be passed through review. I don't know if anyone else in the speaker zone right now has any examples that come to mind. I'm just kind of scrolling through some of the badge denials we've had and looking through a couple of them. One other thing that could happen, your tournament doesn't have 16 players. There's a couple of players that just don't play the qualifiers and don't play in the bracket stage, but they're included on the bracket. That could result in your tournament not getting badged also. Point B, hosting bans have already existed since at least what happened with Nash Cup 2. Hosting bans and staffing bans are slightly different. I'll go ahead and talk about those right now. Hosting bans are now on the wiki as well. And those are right next to staffing bans on the wiki, so you can compare exactly what they do and don't do. Staffing bans are basically like tournament bans, but you're still allowed to play in tournaments. You just can't do any staffing at all. Hosting bans is you are not allowed to organize a tournament. You're not allowed to badge a tournament under your name. You're not allowed to be admin for a tournament. Any administrative role you are not allowed to take in officially supported tournaments. That's the main difference there. And the point of making that distinction is sometimes you just make errors as a host that are not good for your tournament and that could have resulted in a debadge. That is very different, making an accidental error. That is very different from intentional sabotage, like recent example, deleting your entire tournament server during grand finals weekend, right? Those are very, very different sorts of things. And so I think there's cases where we should consider full-on staffing bans or tournament bans for misconduct, but that's in the case of actual misconduct and intentional sabotage, right? Actual malicious intent. The hosting ban is primarily for mistakes, accidents that happen that would otherwise make a tournament debadged. The second part of the question is like, if map pools are leaked, how do we know who the leaker is and who's to blame? It's possible for hosting the situation to not be at fault or aware at all until it's too late. There are cases where you have, for example, a main sheet that has import range to the map pool sheet, and the map pool sheet is not email secured. That's a situation that's happened before. That's something that we could pin on a specific person, but at that point, the tournament is compromised enough that there's not really much we can do. So
I would like to add something to that.
Sure.
As the host of a tournament, you are generally broadly responsible for the actions of your staff members. Now, not every single one, but generally, if you have someone doing spreadsheets or you have a head map pooler and otherwise, that does not necessarily mean that you should be giving them 100% control and no oversight when performing their actions. So as a host, it should be, and we advise, please double check the work of your staff members. It's your tournament. It's your name that is being posted on everything, right? You're the one on the forum post. You're the one who's responsible for everything that comes back to that tournament. Go through your spreadsheets before you host a tournament. You can open up an incognito window in Google and paste the link into your spreadsheet. It takes 3 seconds. Make sure that your spreadsheet security is set up properly. It's really, really easy, and it's something a lot of people forget. Same thing with map pools. It's really easy to skip by that and assume that the map poolers are checking everything. Run them through the bot. Stage has provided an extremely useful bot to the community that you can paste your IDs into and check things. Just take the extra 5-10 minutes, double check the things that your staff are doing in your tournament. It's going to save you a lot of headaches down the line, please. And then you don't have to deal with any of this.
Very true. Last question in there. There was a point made regarding the removal of the 2-month badge submission limit concerning intentional delays to purposefully manipulate a person's BWS. I think one solution for this would be to meet in the middle ground, whereby any host that takes more than 2 months to submit their email would be required to provide a reason with valid proof. That's actually pretty much the exact thing we discussed as an amendment to that rule if we do have any issues with it. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, as I said earlier, but for now, we're going to see how it plays out, and if we do end up having problems with it, that's one potential solution we've already discussed, actually. How long should you wait after a tournament ban for hosting? Because I was planning one when I got tournament banned. Well, technically, you're not allowed to do any of that during a tournament ban, so you will have to wait until completely afterwards. As a general rule of thumb, if you are tournament banned, it is probably best to rebuild a little bit and do some work for other tournaments before hosting your own, in order to make sure that the community generally trusts you to be a host and wants to staff for you, because it's pretty much impossible to host a tournament by yourself and do everything by yourself. Cytosine asks, official communications might sound less official going forward. That quote from the agenda. Yes, one thing I remember people discussing is having more informal space besides the OS dev space to generally brainstorm, chat, etc. with TeamCom members, such as in the Tourney Hub. Responses in the server are great in the last few days, and I think you've been doing a great job being approachable, but it still feels a bit difficult to keep threads going or to not feel like there's scary people overhead. Curious if people are still interested in keeping that thread going. We tournament committee have the ability to make threads in the tournament's channel in OSU dev server now as well. So if you do want to have a more relaxed conversation, we're more than willing to open a thread up. An official outside this server tournament committee server is not in the cards, just because there would need to be a lot of heavy moderation, and frankly speaking, we don't have the bandwidth for that. Our team right now is 10 people, more like really 9 due to Poon being on leave, and most of us are in the same time zones, or basically 2 major time zones in North America and Europe. So moderating during the off hours would be pretty much impossible for us unless we bring in people from other teams as well, and that all is a lot of complications. I've been trying to be more active in Tournament Hub recently and check that more often for just general messages and questions for tournament committee. I think asking in there is fine. Asking in the OSU dev server is fine. And if you really want a more relaxed conversation in a place where every tournament committee member can see it, we can make a thread in here and include all of tournament committee via a ping or something. All of those threads will still be public threads so that they are joinable by everybody, and we can still pull in moderators where needed. For example, if somebody starts spamming Discord links, I got an everyone ping in another server this morning with somebody spamming another Discord link in one of my tournament servers. So stuff like that, right? We'll still need to keep them public for stuff like that. Our custom WinCon tournaments badge bowl. Generally speaking, yes. I have seen, we have seen tournaments with custom win conditions like variable numbers of points based on the margin of difference in teams' wins against each other be badged. Laser Grand Arena. I'm pretty sure. Oh, that's a little different because that's cumulative score. What Stanner is asking is if they can use PP committee can develop custom PP formulas to use as win conditions. So I'm drawing more like custom WinCon parallels here. I think Megamic is hosting a tournament right now that does something similar.
We will always encourage alternative scoring methods and tournament formats. It's been the basis of this community for super long. The only things we have ever asked from tournaments that are doing that is we need to be able to go in, or you need to be able to provide us with the formulas you've used or the methods of scoring, and they need to be infinitely replicable. It's the same thing with qualifiers formats. It's the same thing with all other formats. We need to be able to replicate it because that means that it's free, it's fair, it's open to all of your players, and that it's applied evenly to all participants. That doesn't mean that you can't have a scoring method that calculates differently based on certain scenarios, but it needs to be broad spectrum across the entire tournament. It needs to be like available to everyone. So as long as it's open, as long as everyone can potentially recreate what you did, you don't have to give them access to exactly your processes, but it just needs to be in that format.
Does open sourcing post stage work? I don't think not sure if I can give an answer for full committee on this. Personally, I don't think so. We ask that qualifiers formulas, if they are custom qualifier formulas, be on the forum post before qualifiers happens. This is something that's really similar to that. You're using a custom formula for a win condition. So I would say keep it on the forum post, make sure that it's posted beforehand. You don't have to post it from day one. You could post it like the week before or something, but I don't know that I would want to support custom formulas that are also hidden until after the stage is over.
Stage, I saw you unmute. You're the technical guy here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had this come up a couple of times where hosts want to like have something that's kind of hidden from the player base, so that they don't figure it out or manipulate anything, which I also understand that angle. I would be open, like the thing is it's kind of hard to validate from our side that you're like using the formula you say you're using. I would say we would definitely need to have the formulas or like some kind of way to validate what you're doing ahead of time. So like if you in your original request say like, like here are some files or here are some scripts you can use to validate our quals results, and you know the formulas are like hard coded in there, then I think that could work. And if we get some discrepancy between what you sent us and you know what we see on your results, then we could have a conversation about that.
I think by that logic, it's fine to release it after the round is over. Because realistically, if you are using the formula that you say you are using for that particular weekend, we should still be able to retroactively plug in the data that you got from the weekend into the formula released after the fact and just plug it in, right? The data is not going to change whether or not you release it before the weekend or after. So in my mind, like, yes, I think it would be fine to release it after the weekend because inevitably, as long as you're still fulfilling the requirement of it being replicable, it really doesn't matter when you release it, as long as it's released at some point for someone to be able to do it.
Yeah, I was most concerned about just general transparency because that is one of the core tenets that we use for evaluating tournaments and one of the core expectations for tournaments. But if it's transparent enough that everyone can go back and check their scores, make sure that all of the points given are correct during the weekend for themselves, then there shouldn't be any problem with it. No. So I think that's fine. I agree. Open sourcing post stage should be good.
And also having some documentation on that would be very helpful because having just like an open source script with no information is useless.
Yep. Yeah. If you're making custom stuff like that and it is not easy to just see what it does by looking at it, then documenting what it's doing is probably a good idea.
For Megamix next question, that is something that you're definitely going to want to discuss more with Peppy. He has some stronger viewpoints on things like advertising and monetary related restrictions within OSU. What I will say is that the OSU event, Cavo's OSU event LAN tournament does receive a badge every year. And you do need to be in attendance of that event before even passing the qualifiers round of that tournament, which effectively does mean that you need to pay an entry fee in order to participate in that tournament. So there is precedence for LAN tournaments and requiring entry fees. Now, I will not speak on extending that to non-LAN events, but based on the COE precedent, LANs realistically are an expectation because there's a lot of money and a lot of effort that goes into hosting in-person events. And that could be the one exception where it's like, yes, this is a necessary evil almost, as some would put it, but you would absolutely need to run it by someone like Peppy for things that just take place on Osu, because at that point there's really no need to have an entry fee because there is no barrier to entry to hosting an Osu tournament that has a monetary basis, right? Like, we have extended the amount of clients you can stream in the stable client without having it. Now, you do need supporter to use the client, which is another, conversation we can have, but so it's a weird gray area that definitely goes beyond where we are, but LANs, I think, would have more leniency in my mind. I'm just being redundant at this point. But I don't think that's a question that we can succinctly answer today.
Yeah.
Without, especially for Osu side things. I'd be confident with saying LANs can.
Regarding Rojo's next question, I am just not really sure because we don't have a very easy way of getting approval for an official, unofficial server that doesn't need moderation, and that is more chill like that. I mean, we could just make a server, but at the same time, if it's unofficially an official server, that's just kind of circumventing approval, which is not great for internal teams to do. And I feel like a lot of the, hey, we are normal people and we play video games is more of like a outside server thing, not really a official server thing, unfortunately. Don't really know if I have a great solution to that.
We discussed for those of you that weren't here, at our 1 a.m. meeting that we had a little while ago.
It's actually 3 a.m. for me, thank you.
3 a.m., 1 a.m., late as hell in the morning, effectively, was the usage, and Citus kind of brought it up, for the Tourney Hub, where most tournament committee members, if not all of them, are in here. Megamick, I'm crying now. Is that it's an open space for the community to be available to one another, and the tournament committee members are already there. The issue with putting together what is classified as an internal or official tournament committee space is whether or not anyone likes it or not, and whether or not you think it's fair. This is Peppy's game. He has oversight over everything, and he desires to have oversight over everything. And because it's his game, we need to respect the fact that he wants views over official servers and places. And in order for it to be unofficial, it can't really be hosted and owned by tournament committee, because we are an internal committee regardless, and we do still answer to the powers that be when it comes to Osu. So it needs to be in something like Tournament Hub, where it's an existing community space that our members are simply active in order to pose questions. So I don't think we need to make it this big whole thing about tournament committee doesn't have their own server and we don't have this, because there is already a place where we can do that and we can have those discussions without official oversight. And all it takes is us making a group of channels.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that I think Tournament Hub is our best realistic shot at achieving that kind of casual space. It takes a lot of convincing, and you got to roll pretty high to get, Peppy to approve of a brand new Discord server, let alone an extra channel or two here. Tournament Hub, or at least extending the capabilities of Tournament Hub to, add some TC dedicated channels or something could be something we look into.
I think that's it for questions. I don't see any others. If I'm missing one, please ping me with it. If you have a question, you can either type it in chat or you can raise your hand if you want to hop into the voice chat above. We're not gonna end. We're not gonna end for now. Like, I kind of assumed this would be a longer meeting, more on the order of like an hour to an hour and a half, maybe. So we're not gonna end for now.
What I guess we could ask, what is the what's the preferred length that you all have for these meetings? You know, assuming that we're sitting in here and there's no questions that anyone has, should we just end after the first hour if there's no other questions, or do we just continue on and hope that someone has something? I'm interested into how long you all think is an adequate amount of time for these meetings. I think an hour is probably good enough if we're hosting them monthly.
Yeah, I think an hour is probably fine monthly, personally. I will also say, I think just going forward for these meetings, probably not all of them should be at 15 UTC. It's generally the quote unquote best time.
I was about to say, I think 15 UTC is not
do
the
like
best time, especially since
Friday at 0 or something, like Saturday at 0.
Yeah,
No, it must be 3 a.m.
Like super late.
What
But what
about,
I was
like-
going to say is just like change the time every month. Just do like 1 month it's 15 UTC, 1 month it's like 20 UTC, 1 month it's like 0 UTC, 1 month it's like 10 or 11 UTC. I don't know, right? Like, we have members from different continents. We have community members from all different continents. It feels like scheduling them for just one time every single month is probably a disservice to people who just can't make those meetings and want to be there and ask questions. So I think just like changing the time for them month to month is probably a good idea.
Do we want to do 2 half-hour meetings? Would people be interested in a 1-day 15 UTC for 30 to 45 minutes, and then a separate day we would do like a 20 UTC or 22 UTC 30 to 45 minutes, and then we'll just break it up? I think 2 shorter meetings could work.
I would be more inclined to be doing like a later evening, seeing as I work until like 7.
So we could split up the amount of members that are each. It would also cut the amount of questions in half, realistically, because half the group would show up to one and half would show up to others. So we could make them shorter, and effectively it would be the same time commitment. And like I mentioned earlier, these meetings won't have agendas all the time. These meetings will not always have agendas too. So they're meant to be open time.
Yeah, I think most of the time we won't have agendas.
Yeah.
Wednesday 9 UTC sounds good. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
No, we're good. Thanks.
Everyone fish this, man.
I also just want to kind of like acknowledge that this first meeting probably feels incredibly, especially formal compared to like how we may want to do this in the future. Like, we had like a formal agenda and everything. So I just want people to feel comfortable like asking casual questions, and you don't have to like write out a full essay for us to like answer something, you know?
Speaking of which, TCOM, did you guys have a good Valentine's Day? I made homemade chili for my mom and ate Valentine's chocolates. It was chill.
I got snowed into my house, so I had dinner in with the missus. Good stuff.
I worked.
Yeah.
I climbed.
Let's go. Some bouldering on Friday night.
Oh yeah.
What did you do on Valentine's Day? What was the Valentine's Day plans? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry
about that. Oh my
God. Chiv, I hope your midterm cared about you as much as you cared about it.
Yeah.
Brazil has a different Valentine's Day? I did not know this.
Brazilian Valentine's Day is 1 day before my birthday. That's crazy.
I did not know this.
I have no questions, but it was my birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
On the topic of TC meetings, If anyone wants us to just yap about a specific thing and you don't have like a direct question, that's also, I think, totally fine.
What about Megamic just asked another question specifically for invitational tournaments? Because obviously, like, Corsace Open has received a badge in the past.
Or closed, yeah.
In my mind, it closed. Sorry, yes, thank you. In my mind, it really just depends on how restrictive the criteria it is under which you are like inviting players. Like, it's pretty easy to tell usually about like if a tournament is specifically inviting, you know, a bunch of like 4 digits from the same sector of the tournament scene or whatever, or I actually don't know. I don't think there's a way to realistically do that, because someone could be like, oh, they're inviting only 4-digit reading players. Okay, well, is the invitational tournament for 4-digit reading players? Like, I feel like that requires a level of discernment that we can't just like answer on a blanket light response, I feel like.
Yeah, it is extremely case by case, because invitationals are also extremely case by case, right? They are hand picking people to invite. And so it's very, very hard to answer that as a blanket statement. I will say I don't think we've had any troubles with invitationals in the past. Like, I don't think we've actually had any that are just like very blatantly trying to give one person a badge. All the invitationals we reviewed so far, I think, have been like good tournaments, just inviting really good players and creating a cool tournament for lots of really good players at the same time.
I thought the original like deal with that was that as long as there's a reasonable justification for why you're inviting the people you're inviting, like it's not just you're inviting your buddies. I think wasn't that our stance on that?
Generally, yeah. RMOT is a special case though, because RMOT had one of the criteria for invitationals is that if there is, or for any badge tournament really, is if there are preliminary events that lead into the next tournament, those preliminary events also have to follow the same criteria as any officially supported tournament. So if your preliminary events do not follow that badge criteria, then your next up tournament that is actually going for support cannot receive official support. So that is something to consider when you are making an invitational through preliminary tournaments, and something that you have to follow. There's a couple of other questions up above now, so let's go back to those. Where's TCOM meeting YAP costs? DO number 1, Chillier number 2. Stage number 3.
Habib asked the question about possibly getting a submission form for people so that they can submit questions if they can't attend a meeting, that we can have a look. That's I was going to say we can do. I don't know who would be able to set that up. I'm guessing one of you guys would be able to.
Someone just make it, stick it in the drive. Yeah, we could have like an open text field, and then just hit a drop down menu and select like the meeting that you want the question to go on, and then we can just filter them down on different tabs. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, sounds good.
And just use the same OAuth that we used for the applications that Poon did for us there. So yeah, that's definitely something we can do. That's a great idea.
Sweet. Mofu. Okay. Prize pools are exclusively decided upon by hosts of the tournament. If you are a host that wants to provide a massive prize pool to your tournament, it should not be restricted from our end how much you are able to do for that, because hosts generally just provide prize pools out of the goodness of their own hearts. It is not our place to restrict how much money or physical prizes a host can provide just because they decided to host a different rank range. That is my opinion on the matter. Anyone else disagree with that?
No, do not disagree.
Is the prize pool question?
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't think we should just restrict that from our end.
No.
No.
That is up to the host, up to the community to donate. Whatever happens. Good luck with your taxes. That's all I'll say on that.
Yes. Please, by the way, if you live in the United States and you are receiving donations for your prize pool, please set yourself up with a nonprofit or otherwise you will owe taxes on any donations that you receive through Stripe. That is a PSA. Do not forget to set yourself up for taxes in the US. So
crying.
Big thing to forget about. Yeah, it's happened to many a host from here. So double check that, please. The IRS is coming for you. Cytosine, I think I agree. Yes, like when it comes to like broad rules and guidelines about that sort of thing, that is kind of the purpose of these discussions here, is to have that broader conversation of, do we need a community discussion for this? It's actually something that I think we mentioned in passing earlier, or maybe I missed it, is for the badge criteria checklist that Dio pasted in as our preliminary guidelines above. That will be a community discussion, actually. We didn't release it officially yet, but there is going to be a form released around, and we are effectively going to spread it to the entire community over the course of a couple of weeks, and we are going to ask absolutely everyone, effectively, the question, what is something really good and stand out that that a badge tournament has done, and why should it be on this checklist? And we are going to compile a massive list of those requirements, pick out the top 20 to 25 as a community, and that's going to be the basis for our distinction on what we are considering like critical or optional or like necessary items for these checklists. So this is not going to be the sort of thing where TCOM decides a checklist of items, and then the word is God now. Like, this is going to be a community discussion. We're going to have back and forth on that sort of thing. Obligatory warm-ups, Rojo, you are from a time long lost.
Yeah. Can we get a ping roll Yeah. Can we get a ping roll so I don't miss these meetings in the future? At Michael Cornelius, there is the tournament news ping roll that we pinged with the schedule for this meeting. So if you are, and we'll probably ping with the schedule for all meetings going forward. So if you are interested in getting pinged about the schedule for these meetings, get that ping roll and then set an alarm for it. That's
I also suggested our TCOM Twitter as well. So
that's true. Yeah, we could
put
it on
be
there.
More active there.
Yeah. So,
do we really? Twitter is going downhill.
True. We need a TCOM Blue Sky, please.
Twitter has lost 80% of its stock value in the past 8 months. It's over for them.
Yes, TCOM does have a Twitter account. Let me post it in here. Give me 2 seconds.
We actually unironically need a TCOM Blue Sky.
Yeah,
Poon agrees.
There you go. TCOM Twitter. So
that's it. Someone make a Blue Sky. Someone make a Blue Sky too. Just rock it. I'll give you. We'll go through the email that we usually use. Let's just do it.
TCOM Facebook? Oh God.
Yeah. Are these things recorded? If you're giving people to ask questions beforehand, I don't know if they have the time to attend the meeting themselves, and then they won't be able to hear the answer. I'm recording this one. I started it a little late after I did the intro stuff with the document, but that's posted publicly, and I was basically reading off the document, so not much missed there.
Pretty sure Waller is recording it too.
Yes. We should stream these too. We should just stream them. Just get all of the locations.
Sure.
And then we could record the stream bot.
TikTok, Reels, yeah.
I'm continuing to scroll.
Oh, one topic that I think would be fun to talk about if we don't have a specific question is multi game hybrid tournaments being badged, like chess Osu combo tournaments.
We should host more game mode combo tournaments. More. I don't want to call them mini games, but I'm going to call them mini games. Sorry, Hyvie. But they are. I definitely think that it would be very cool to see more mixed mode tournaments. There you go. That's a better word for it. Mixed mode. There is a multi-mode tournament.
I think the standpoint on multi-game tournaments is that the badge could be awarded and probably would be awarded for skill in other games, which is not really the point of an OSU badge, right? Like you are now playing a completely different game. The awards should be in that game specifically. There's also the problem of like anti-cheat. For example, in GeoGuessr, it is extremely easy to just cheat in ranked even, and it does not always get caught. Scripting does not always get caught. Googling does not always get caught. The systems are not really super in place for that. So hosting a multi-game tournament with GeoGuessr in particular, you could even just have somebody come in, use your account who is literally a pro at the game. We had that during Cope Cup 3, which was unbadged for very good reason, did not even go for badge from the start for very good reason. One of the Canadians had a Canadian World Cup player lined up to come in and play for them if they had to play GeoGuessr. So yeah, that's there's lots of complications, and it is a massive rabbit hole to open. So I don't know that we want to open up that can of worms and get into badging multi-game tournaments. That seems like a pretty bad idea from the outset, and even if it would be really fun, it is something that, frankly speaking, we don't have the capacity for right now, and we'd also need to rely on other games anti-cheat, which is not always the best, to put it lightly.
Face cam required. Face cam required. That could be your mitigation plan. If we know that you are well, actually, it depends. Who knows? Yeah, let's not rely on other games anti-cheat. God bless Ubisoft.
If I hypothetically wanted to run an OSU community tournament where it's all other games, I can post that kind of thing in the tourney forum, right? No promises this will happen, but people have asked. Yes, that's fine to post in the tourney forums. Just don't promise a badge because we're not giving one for that. How many people are you expecting to bring in with the first wave of applicants for TCOM? And have you denied Megamic already? We are not discussing whether or not we have accepted or denied any applicants so far. But I will say, I think a lot of people are looking for lots of new members. Chillier says 7 to 8 new members. I have always been and am still of the opinion that as many new people and perspectives as possible is great for tournament committee to have. I would even be open to more members than that, but I don't even think we've discussed an exact number.
Yes, that list is quite literally assuming that we are bringing on 2-ish members for Catchmania Tycho at the most, realistically. Maybe some 1, maybe some 2. And then, like Theo said, as many good standard applicants as we can. Realistically, the list is going to be more than that. Also, if it wasn't obvious for the second part of my statement, that was a joke. But that, like, nothing has been decided for applications yet. We have the only thing that has quite literally gone past now is security checks. And effectively, if you pass the security check because you're not like actively cheating or something, then you're still in the stages of conversation and voting right now, effectively. So we've got plenty of members still to be added. We're looking for multiple player perspectives to be added, as well as staff perspectives to be added. So please, like, we can joke about it a lot, but don't make any assumptions or anything like that until we officially release the full list of users. Now, something that we did discuss and that may be in place is that should we find a member that we think is an absolute necessary addition to the team, there is a chance that some additions will happen earlier than others. If we think that there is a member that absolutely needs to be added sooner, they will be contacted ahead of time, and then their opinion will be taken into account with evaluating the remainder of the applications that are coming in. So there is the chance that you will see some members added earlier than others. So if you see some people getting responses and other people don't, do not get discouraged. There is the chance that that is what is happening.
Hubba asks, yeah, I'm gonna look that up while I answer this. Hubba asks how many. What about certain game sets that are being developed in Laser? Like, if there's enough popularity in one of the user-developed games on Laser, could there be an audience for that seeing as it's from an official avenue, same as a Taiko badge, for example? I think there is a pretty big distinction to make between Taiko, which is an officially developed game mode by Peppy, and user-developed games in Laser. Those are definitely two different things. That is honestly something that we have not actually considered yet, I don't think. So I'm not sure if we can give an answer. Preliminary, very unsure, because I don't know if we want to badge unofficially developed game modes. Yeah, I don't know. Hasn't been considered yet. Preliminary, probably not from me, but that's a me answer and not a tournament committee answer, because we have not even considered that before.
In fairness, there was a Laser tournament that did get badged. I don't know what Laser specific rule sets they may have used offhand. Though I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, I think that was still
in that's like moving that direction.
Yeah,
but not like that's user developed unofficial mods.
Right. I'm more concerned about the user developed mods and the more like unofficial stuff developed by them than I am about Laser. Laser's fine, we can badge Laser, but the unofficial stuff is more like very odd. Or maybe not odd, just like untested and not considered yet.
Uncharted.
Uncharted, yeah. That's a good one.
I'd say honestly, just email us if you want to try something before you go through all the effort, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, and yeah, we have like 30. Hold on. Yeah, we have like 40-ish applications that we're looking at right now, somewhere around there.
Got a lot more than that, but some got screened out, right?
Some did not pass security check, as Chillier said. So yeah,
right.
I may have missed a question, so I am reading through. As Chillier said, Azer is not officially a part of tournament committee. He is there for open visibility, external opinion, but we haven't officially re-added him, and I don't know if he wants to be re-added to the actual committee or not. So that is not something that we're gonna like make a huge announcement about. He is in that channel to see what is going on, not to be a member of tournament committee.
Yeah. If he wants to be formally re-added, then yes, we will use the United clip as his re-addition post, but that's up to him. Whether or not he wants to fully be ingrained in the environment again, which is all well and good. We cannot answer questions about specific applicants, just as a forewarning. Like, we are fully able to release how many applied and like what game mode numbers are, but we just can't release specific applicants.
Yep. Thoughts on tournaments being coincidentally named based on past tournaments, but isn't exactly a sequel to said past tournament? That's an extremely specific question. What I will say is, I don't know how to answer that. Do your due diligence, and if you are going to name your tournament after another, probably get the past host's permission to do that. Like, for example, APAC Mammoth Cup, speaking of Hippo Cup, got permission from T1G, the host of Hippo Cup, to name their tournament Mammoth Cup and style it similarly, right? Aaron, maybe you can speak on that a little more.
Yeah, and we've also had like multiple people using the Suigi name, right? Because that's more a format than a like tournament specifically. Obviously, if you think of Suigi Cup and you've been around since 2017, you're going to think of a specific type of Suigi Spring Cup that occurred back then and is now largely defunct, unfortunately. But I have never had a problem with other people using the name Suigi Cup because it's describing what kind of tournament it is. It's not trying to impersonate a specific tournament. And I think that would be kind of my take on this question in general, is just that, like, if you're not blatantly trying to impersonate a tournament and mislead people, and it's just like, hey, I like this name, and I have talked to the host and they said it's fine, then I would think it's just go for it. But if it's like, I am trying to mislead people into thinking that this tournament is something that it's not, that's where that would be a problem. But I also don't foresee that hopefully being a big concern. I would like to think that people aren't doing that.
Cytosine, two last quick things. Do any of the other tournament committee members who are here have anything on your mind you felt prompted to bring up here? That's anyone else. Quick before that, one clarification. Personally curious about, TC is not actually told how screening works, right? You're just a messenger who passes things through. We don't even pass things through. Screening is completely account support. Tournament committee does not touch it whatsoever. So that's your answer there.
Yeah,
I suppose any other
one thing we don't touch.
Yeah, that is pretty much the one thing regarding tournaments we do not touch. Any other people who are here have things that they want to bring up?
I am late for my Hippo Cup match, question? So I will be
go to your Hippo Cup match.
T1G will now be gone as well. Thank you everyone for the discussion today.
See you, Chillier.
Goodbye, my friends.
Goodbye. In terms of, do any other TC members who are here have anything else on your mind? I don't particularly have anything else that I felt prompted to bring up here. Yeah, I don't really have anything else that kind of brings up to mind. I don't know if Stews has anything else, or Stage. But yeah, I don't really have anything else.
Yeah, just from me, I just think this is a really cool thing that we're doing. Hopefully the community enjoys these types of meetings, and I also again want to stress that like our meetings aren't like these super high tension like meetings. Obviously they're pretty informal. They're just kind of a way for us to connect more with y'all. So I really like this format. Hope you guys do as well. Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I really enjoy this format.
Yeah.
And thanks for leading. You did a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, everyone thank Dio for being a fantastic host as per usual.
Thank you. Yeah. The quick answer to Megamix question is we sometimes get asked, as Chillier said, for format reviews beforehand, and we'll answer those as needed. We also try to look at all of the requests for support that come in, and if we can catch a tournament with an invalid format beforehand, we will, but some of those slip through the cracks, so we try to catch those when possible. And now that that's answered, I will invite Shiv to speak. Good morning, Kevin.
Hello, good morning, guys. Oh my god, I actually can't believe I actually ended up waking up. I was like really worried about like not waking up for this, so yeah. But hey, that was awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing this talk. I thought it was really beneficial for everyone. Mainly my stuff again is like mainly just like some pointers I had from some other people during the last entire week. But I think almost the majority of things that we talked initially in the document and afterwards have all been discussed either here or in the previous talk we held with Chillier Parent Stage, or in the response document. So I'm pretty sure that's all good. But just a couple of things I wanted to ask with regards to, this is mainly setting precedent for some tournaments. So the first one that happened recently is Hippo Cup 8 had two maps in this week's map pool that were kind of in the kind of gray area if they were allowed to be pulled or not. I know Stage updated his bot because of this reasoning, but the first map I'll talk about was called Red Eyes. It was a song from DJ Max, but the mapper themselves didn't have it included in the metadata and only had it included in the description. And there's another set of Red Eyes as well that doesn't have it anywhere. Like it just doesn't write that it's from the game. So is that grounds for being under the content usage permissions if the mapper themselves doesn't include it in the metadata?
Yeah, so we looked at those as a group already, so I think we can just answer this. The map of Red Eyes that was used, because it's from DJ Max, those are technically not allowed. However, if the mapper is not tagging it properly, if they are not putting a source, if it's not even in the map description, there is no way for poolers to know that it's from DJ Max unless they're familiar with the games themselves. So in cases like that, we might not even catch it because it's like, how are we supposed to know also, right? I don't know every DJ Max song. I've never played DJ Max, so I don't know all of them. And second, it's an undue burden on tournament hosts and map poolers to catch stuff like that when it is not tagged properly, doesn't have a source, no information on where the song is from, right? You can very easily assume it's just a normal song, not for a rhythm game, or just from an artist in a different rhythm game that hasn't been put on the content usage guidelines. So I think it'd be a really undue and unfair burden on hosts for us to debadge over stuff like that. Because this one had it in the description, T1G ended up changing it anyway, and Stage updated the OMCC bot to search through beat map set descriptions as well for DJ Max, and also updated it to include DJ Max as a forbidden source for maps. Obviously, in the same vein, if the map set is ranked, these rules don't count, just the same as any other ranked beat map set that's not DMCA'd, right? The second one, Eyes by Seiryu, that one, I believe... Okay, so Eyes has a DMCA'd beat map set, but the song itself is not on content usage guidelines. The way DMCA works, by the way, is that for anyone who doesn't know, is that specific beat map sets are DMCA'd. Not the song, not a particular artist or anything, specific beat map sets. Those are the ones that are disallowed because they are DMCA'd. Technically, Eyes by Seiryu with this unranked map set is fine to use. I would discourage using songs that you know are DMCA'd on other map sets, right? It's not really respecting the artist's wishes. Clearly, they don't want their content on OS, so probably don't use it if you know about it and can help it. But technically, if you do use one of those, it is fine. We are not going to debadge for something like that because, again, it is virtually impossible for every map pooler and every person to know exactly what songs have been DMCA'd in the past, and that would again be an undue and unfair burden on hosts and map poolers.
Okay. Also, one thing on the DJ Max stuff. I was so unfamiliar with DJ Max that I didn't even know that it was a source instead of an artist. The wiki, which I do think we need to update, describes that DJ Max, aka NeoWiz, is a disallowed artist, when in reality it's a disallowed source. So that's just blatantly wrong, and I would not hold that against a host.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was my first pointer. The second one, which is also on content usage permissions and with regards to one specific artist. Of course, I don't know if you guys update the wiki yourselves or if it's through OSU support, but for Hatsuki Yura specifically, they have another group, another stage name that they go by called Drop. And often than not, some of the maps actually end up using Drop as their artist name, and people end up pulling it because it doesn't register on the Hatsuki Yura if you search it up on the graveyarded maps. I was wondering if that's also the case for unbadging, because there are a couple badge tournaments that recently used Drop map sets without knowing that it was Hatsuki Yura.
Wait. Okay, there's two things there. The first part, we can update this if we need to. Chillier mentioned that Fishy updates this, but if you know that there's like, if you know that an artist goes by like another alias, then definitely let us know and we can open a PR. On the second part, I don't know of a tournament that's been unbadged for that, but maybe we could talk more about that.
Yeah, just for context, I'll send you guys the case where this happened where there's two songs that are the same, but they have different artist names, and one is unbadgeable and one isn't technically, because people don't know.
You have those.
And the drop map actually gets pulled pretty often, by the way. It was a long time ago, it was used in Perennial, back when the rules didn't exist, obviously, but it still gets used as a normal one pretty often. So I think it's just important to clarify.
Yeah, I am not super sure about that one because it's an alias, and because it's an alias, aliases are often registered under different artist names. So this is a more complex question than just like, oh yeah, we're not going to use it.
Yeah.
Because
Really
like I don't know if Hatsukiura under Drop is registered with other rhythm games that don't allow those particular songs to be used in other places without proper licensing, right? Like this is more of a licensing question than it is like a how are we going to handle this specific alias question. So until we know about the licensing stuff, which isn't even a tournament committee question really, this is like a Pishy Fat and FA team question. I don't know that we have an answer to it. In the meantime, because it is an alias, what I would say is, again, it is unfair to hosts. If you are pooling stuff under an alias of an artist, you don't even know that it's the same artist, and you would be unbadged because of that. Very similar to the stuff with DJ Max, right? If you don't know that a song is from DJ Max, it's not properly listed. How are you supposed to know that it is against content usage guidelines? Same thing with Drop. If you don't know that they're Hatsukiura, how it's not listed publicly anywhere on the OS site, unless you already know that Drop is an alias for Hatsukiura or a second maybe artist incorporation, right? How are you supposed to know that that is disallowed content? So I would say because there is no way within the OS sphere to publicly check that, they're fine for now. Now that we know about it, I think it's a priority for the FA team to figure that out, and we'll inform them of that after this meeting. So there may be an update on that soon, but for now, because there's no way to know until I didn't know until now. I didn't know those were the same song. I didn't know those were the same artists. So I would say undue burden on hosts and map poolers once again, and should be fine until further notice. And once that further notice does come out, we'll ask Stage to add it to OMCC. We'll put out a notice that that's now the case, and make sure that there's some proper notification, and that any tournaments that did pool it during this in-between period, like if they started pooling, released a map pool, and then it gets dropped that this isn't allowed, those tournaments won't be at risk of a debadge because it's before they were releasing pools before they knew that this was an issue.
Okay. Yeah, that's completely fine. Yeah, this is like a really difficult question, so not a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to answer that, really other than like we gotta find out about licensing for that, right?
Mm-hmm. The last question with regards to content usage, because this is just again to clarify stuff, is are covers allowed? So just like covers of 40MP or EZFG songs that are pretty popular, but I can give some examples off the top of my head. A lot of people pool the Rio Cyber Thundercider, which is by Xarius. Like this, I know it was used in Hippo Cup maybe 1 or 2 years ago by Habib. But pretty much, this is a cover of a popular EZFG song. I have no idea if these have ever been like not allowed or allowed.
The rule of thumb is that if the artist and metadata on a map is not listed under the content usage guidelines as disallowed or partially disallowed, then the map is fine. Obviously, if it's ranked and not DMCA'd, it's also fine. Or has a leaderboard and is not DMCA'd, it's also fine. So anything that's a cover that doesn't have, like featuring this artist or from this artist is completely fine. Okay. But covers that are by a completely different artist, yeah, that's not gonna impact content usage.
Yeah, like another example is like I know the Noise of Rain is a really popular 40MP song, and a lot of them don't even just have them. They barely have them in the metadata because the artist just covers it anyways. So yeah.
See 40MP in the tags. So, yeah. I mean, I could update to check for tags, but
yeah, it's mainly like, I mean, like that's the thing, right? It's like it has it in the tags and it's a cover, but that's the extent of how much the original artist is involved.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with covers myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're by a completely different artist, so there's no reason to debadge over something like that.
That's great. Yeah, that was just mainly to clarify that because it's like a big edge case. So yeah. Okay. On a different point, this is regards to somebody talking about badge invitationals. I was wondering if there's been any discussion since Corsairs Close is supposed to come up relatively soon, if it actually happens. Will that ever be eligible for a tri badge? Because despite it being like a high level tournament, it is an invitational, and that's why it was denied previously. But I was just curious if you guys ever discussing that personally afterwards.
The last time we discussed that was a while ago. Like, it's been, I don't remember if it was 2023 or it might have been 2022 or 2023. So it's been a long time since we discussed that. What I will say is stuff hosted by Corsairs is pretty much always at least in the conversation for Tri-Badge because they make really, really good tournaments. I don't know if the prevailing opinion has changed or not. Last time the opinion was this is an invitational, therefore there is an artificial limit on the level of competition in the tournament, so we don't want to tri-badge that. But I don't know if the prevailing opinion has changed. We've seen, I don't know how many member changes since then. Opinions change over time, right? New information can come up, so I don't know if the prevailing opinion has changed. Last time the opinion was because there's an artificial limit through the use of an invitational system on the level of competition within the tournament, we don't want to tri-badge that. But Corsairs tournaments are always in the conversation, at least. And I know when the 1 year that Corsairs closed was not an invitational, that was definitely something that came up, was the possibility of tri-badging.
I mean, I like the idea of, awarding tri-badge to those tournaments, even if it's an invitational. That's just my opinion. Like, if the quality meets our, new quality standards and the competition is, really, really, really good anyway. Usually like Corsairs Close is inviting like the best of the best of the best. So I think that could make it a candidate.
Yeah, from what I know, like the reason why they do an invitational is just to avoid the whole qualifier referee stage, because it's only 16 players anyways. I know MGC had qualifiers for a crazy amount of people, so yeah.
Those who remember Yuki Aim.
Oh, that one too. That had to be ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
I don't even know how many people
those qualifiers were ridiculous.
That probably sets the precedent, but yeah. Somebody had like a point in the chat, so they can go first, I guess.
Oh yeah, with teams upcoming to OS Web, do you guys think it would be interesting to use teams for tournaments? I'm really unfamiliar with anything regarding that stage. Do you know anything about these teams on OSU Web thing?
No. If you can provide some more insight into that, that'd be helpful, though.
Yeah, that's something we're, I think, completely unaware of.
Okay. I think I have two more pointers for that. The first one, this is a quick one that I just wanted to reinforce. Will there ever be, okay, these are like, points from other people in the community, but will there ever be more discussion on if other layers of screening are allowed? So I know in the past tournaments have been getting unbadged because a lot of people use ETX screening, which is like obviously another way of determining player skill level. There's also the Russian bot by IXFire and friends that I have no idea what that's called again, like skill issue, I think. Are these prohibited for usage if they were layered on top of screening? So like pretty much you can't play if your rating is too high.
So let's see. We do have kind of an extensive framework on like what these tools need to do in order for them to be badge eligible. We have allowed them to be used in the specific case of like it was in the context of drafting. I can't remember exactly how they were used in the draft process, but maybe it was like determining draft captains or something like that. Basically something that didn't determine seeding directly. Let's see. If these tools can, meet our requirements, then yes, they will be badge eligible. But from my understanding right now, like they're both open source, but there's no documentation and there's no reproducible data set, no data set archives, which are basically the tools we need in order to kind of audit that the people using the tools are not manipulating the outputs of those tools, if that makes sense.
Right.
So if they can do that, then yes.
Yeah, there is also at least a section on the wiki about registrant filtering, which is basically third-party screening, right? What you're discussing with the use of other bots like ETX and Skillissue and such for creating other filtering through bots and algorithms and such. There's a set of expectations already on there, but the TLDR is that the data set for where they're pulling all of their data from, how they're getting the ratings, that initial data has to be publicly available, downloadable, timestamped, and have the most recent archive be at least 30 days fresh, so no more than 30 days out of date, and they have to remain available for at least 6 months. There should be documentation provided on how to reproduce the results using it, including code if they're using code for that. They also must disclose the dates at which they seed and or filter players using these tools. And when doing qualifiers, the formula or method to use to determine, that's just normal. And a third party basically should be able to get the same results without needing additional information, right? If you can get the same results by using exactly what is publicly listed, then it's fine. And what that means is your data has to be publicly available, algorithms should be publicly available, and manual adjustments to that filtering is not allowed.
Okay, awesome. This is just a very side point onto the same thing. But I know Stage is still working on OSU tournament rating. Do you have any intention of having it be like a proper filter for some tournaments later on to counter like, I guess like D-rankers or anything of the sort?
OTR mentioned. Yes. So it's funny because I was just talking with Misto about this today. And we're both like working so hard, we're almost like burning out. But the end goal is, in my opinion, for at least rank restricted, which is kind of my specialty, OTR combined with a rank restriction is going to yield the most accurate results for kind of, let's see, getting the best of the best players who really are better than that range out of the playing field. So, you know, if I'm ranked 10,000, but I'm also playing open rank tournaments and I'm just not ranking up, my tournament rating will be significantly higher than most other people in the 10K range. Therefore, I would probably be excluded from that kind of tournament. So, I mean, yeah, that's the end goal. Obviously, we will also want to do a lot more than just that. We want to provide a lot of cool stats and stuff. But if you have any like specific questions about like the goals of OTR, I'm also happy to like talk about that.
And Stage, I know you're developing this in accordance with the guidelines on the wiki so that it can be used in badge tournaments, correct? I'll just dispel that now.
Yes, the reason why it is taking literally 2 years is because we are basically designing the system from the ground up to be very compliant. We already have a public database, so I'll just link that here just to give you guys an example of like, hey, here's just an example of a system that is archiving their data that's timestamped. This is you know, hopefully compliant if the other members agree. You can download this. We have full documentation on how to import this data set. And yeah, so that's the reason why it's taking so long, honestly.
I will go back to the OSU teams question. Do we think it'd be cool? Personally, I think it'd be cool if we had tournaments based around teams. I don't know exactly what the system is for joining on the official server. I know there's a third-party plugin that displays something similar on profiles, where basically you can only be in one team at the same time, and you can just join whichever team you want, so long as you receive an invitation from the host. So that is very, very similar to website team systems that have been developed for tournaments in the past, like Perennial 2022 or Course Ace Open, where you have to have an invite from the team captain to join a team on the tournament website, and then you're only on one team at a time. And once you join that team, either you can leave or you can be kicked from the team. So it's a very, very similar system from what I can tell as past team systems for tournament websites. So I don't see any reason why it couldn't be used just off the rip based off of like what I think it's doing. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be used. Like there's nothing there that goes against badge criteria if you wanted to host a tournament where, say, everyone has to be on the same official team at the same time.
To answer Megame's question as well, wouldn't that also be third-party screening, so not allowed? No. So screening and filtering are two different concepts, basically. OTR would be, or any other system like OTR would be acting as a filter, but you still need to go through like the actual screening process as well.
And that distinction is one that we try to keep pretty solid internally between screening and filtering, because registrant filtering is stuff like BWS or OTR or ETX, and those have specific guidelines that they must abide by in order to be compliant with official support. But external screening processes are things like hosts manually picking out which players they think might be cheating or are suspicious or otherwise not good for the tournament, and that is strictly disallowed. So those are two different things that we try to keep a distinction between screening and filtering. What we're talking about are filtering programs and filtering clients, and not external screening.
Awesome. Yeah, I have maybe one more final question. So thanks for the lengthy discussion, but pretty much this is another point that is a very specific edge case again, which is what I wanted to cover. This is with regards to the notorious tournament, AJDT2. I was wondering if there was any internal discussion with regards to how this tournament and future tournaments, because obviously it sets a precedent with regards to how gimmick map pools are handled. If this has been still in discussion for how TCOM will look into map pools as a whole and deem if they're badgeable for the reasons or not.
I can answer that. So with AGDT2, let me pull up when that happened, because oh my god, it's been a while. So basically, the consensus opinion in tournament committee was bad map pools cannot be grounds for debadging, but map pools that break core guidelines, as in intentionally troll players, do not preserve competitive integrity, use maps that are completely coin flip, like a single spinner or something like that, and secondarily encourage good sportsmanship between players. Map pools that break those core expectations for tournaments are not something that we want to support. The line that we had, or the line of reasoning that we had there, was we don't want to be evaluating map pools because that gets into subjective territory extremely quickly, but egregious instances that make it so that points effectively don't result in a more skilled opponent and instead are pretty much RNG are not something that we really want to support. That is also a line that we're not entirely sure how to draw. And so because it comes up so infrequently, we look really case by case at it. Okay. That's pretty much the best answer I can give there. Is we intentionally try to stay away from map pools as much as possible, because that gets subjective way too quickly for us to want anything to do with it. And the line that we try to draw is, are these maps conducive to active competition where the more skilled player actually wins the map most of the time?
Yeah, I think in the case of AGDT2, like I watched the VOD, and, you know, there were clearly some players performing better. but maybe 7 of 8 players or something were just it just looked like there was RNG going on, and that's why some of us, I think, came to that conclusion. I mean, I'm always open to revisiting things if we want to, but I think the most extreme example of like what we're trying to avoid with map pools is if like a tournament pool's centipede, that isn't conducive to a competitive environment. That's like the most extreme example I can think of. So whether AGDD2 did that in their map pool, I maybe could be open to a revisit, but yeah.
Awesome. That's pretty much, I think, all of the questions I have on my end. Thank you guys again for hosting this meeting. I thought it was really beneficial. It's awesome to see the community support and transparency between every side. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for the questions.
I like this too.
Okay. I'm gonna keep answering questions, and when the time comes that the last question comes through, I'll just wait 5 more minutes, and if nobody else has any questions by that point, we'll close things down. There's still a couple of questions or comments coming through, so we'll take a look at those. Does not maintain competitive integrity, leaves a lot of subjectivity as it is. No, that's the trouble that we always have with it, and that's why we have a vote system. That's why we have multiple people who try to give as many opinions as possible on exactly what maintaining competitive integrity means in instances that are a little subjective like that. I think it's been brought up a lot that a lot of tournament committee isn't involved in the pooling scene actively, and it would be good to get more community input somehow on any such decisions. That's why we're adding more people. That is why we have applications open, both for active tournament players and for active map poolers. There's definitely a lot of people who have applied to tournament committee already that are more active, both as tournament players, especially in open rank, and as map poolers, a different part of the scene than a lot of members, especially of standard tournament committee. So we're actively looking to add more people who have some expertise in that. Someone played Centipede at like point. Yeah, I think that was Milhior. It might have been. I don't remember exactly who, Walla. But yeah, there's people who have played Centipede before, just way rated down. I don't remember who exactly. I think he FC'd also, which was extremely silly.
Yeah, I do think on the topic of subjectivity, again, the vote system is kind of a way for the, I guess, for us to kind of collectively have like a subjective consensus that then turns into a objective official consensus, right? I think that's also something to keep in mind.
Yeah. The reason we call a vote is basically anytime we make a major decision, like debadging a tournament, for example, every single one of those gets a vote. And anytime there's anything subjective about any kind of major decision we're making, we also call one of those. So that's kind of the point of that system, is to make sure that we have a consensus opinion at the very least, and that there is some proper reasoning behind what we're doing. Has indeed been 1.5 hours. Like I said, I'm going to wait until we get kind of the last questions to trickle in, and then if we go 5 minutes without a question, we'll just end everything there. So currently 1632, 1633. So call it at 1648. 1638, excuse me. Unless we start getting a lot more questions.
I think a lot of people are heading out.
Yeah.
Seems like people are heading out.
Yeah, I think most people are happy to head out now. So we did talk about a lot. So that was a good first public Q&A. This is again something that we wanted to do. We talked about this in October of last year. So it has been a little while since we first discussed doing this, but really happy that we're finally getting these underway. Again, these are going to be monthly. We're going to announce the date and time in advance with the tournament news roll ping. So if you want more information about when these are in the future, subscribe to that roll ping. That also comes along. As a bonus, you also get news about every major rule change that we make. So that is another thing that you can get through there.
Me?
No, his mic was fine.
Oh, okay. Must be me. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll also following Digital Hypno's suggestion, we'll try and get a Google form for those who can't make the meetings so that we can also have a look through those as well.
Yeah.
That will be posted as when the meeting will be announced for the next meeting.
All right. Yeah. Take care, guys. Thanks a lot again, Dio. Yaz, Shadoos, good to see you guys. Much love. Take care.
Yes, much love, much love. Thank you all for attending. And thank you to Dio for hosting, as per usual.
All right. All right, and seems like that's everything. So we're going to go ahead and call it here. No more questions for now. If you have any very lingering questions, you can just ask them in the tournaments channel, and we can answer them there. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for being here, and see you next month for another Q&A meeting.